Welcome to today's podcast episode, everyone. We've got a very exciting guest for you guys. Today, we've got David, founder and CEO of PredictAP. They are an accounts payable company that are helping commercial real estate firms with all things related to AP. So, David, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate you doing this. I'm excited to be chatting with you today.
Absolutely. So, maybe we can just start by you giving us a background of like the why behind starting Predict AP, around 5 years ago. Like really, what's led you up to this point?
Yeah, no, it's been a journey. It's been a journey of zigs and zags. I think a lot of times, I think it's very rare in life where you say, "Hey, I want to be a," some people, "I want to be a firefighter when I'm a kid," and that's where you end up. So for me, I've,
Right.
I've had an interesting path with careers, and I'm a little older, so I was in the dot-com boom, and I was, going to retire 2 weeks after graduation a long time ago, and that didn't happen because the dot-com crash happened, and so I started off in an accounting role. And I have this just inability not to address problems. So I was always finding different problems at work and different ways
Mm.
to fix those. My wife loves it, right? She can never just tell me a problem. I have to go try to fix it. And so I have this kind of accounting business background, but I've always been a geek at heart. So I'm always trying to find a better way to fix a problem with a process or with tech or with automation. And so in my career, I kind of stepped more and more along that path. So stepping out of a business role more into a technical role. And so
Wow.
during my career at Colony, and Colony Capital is a big private equity fund. It's a pretty large manager, primarily focused on real estate. They would buy
Nice.
all sorts of real estate assets around the world. And my job at the end there as a managing director of apps and technology is to figure out how to make it actually work. So how do we do accounting? Public company
Nice.
reporting, treasury, paying bills, collecting rent, paying investors, doing contributions and distributions to investments. So lots and lots of operational
Nice.
detail around that. And it was great. It was a great opportunity and they really were tech forward and gave me a chance to lead a team that built a lot of great automations and really changed
Oh,
fundamentally how
wow.
the business worked. One of these
Nice.
things is just paying bills. So real estate, as you can imagine, if you own lots and lots of properties around the world, you're paying lots and lots of invoices.
Oh,
And
wow.
so you can imagine, lots of lawns to mow, lots of windows to wash, roofs to repair, all that stuff. And paying bills, maybe I'm sure for a lot of people, it's not the most exciting or glamorous thing that people think about, but it's a lot of complexity around it, particularly in real estate, because the way real estate's owned, people may not know
Mhm.
this if they're outside the industry, but in private equity funds, it's a fund structure, limited partnership structure with a general partner and lots
Ah.
of legal entities. So the lawyers create these things. There's tax blockers. There's all these
Oh.
structures because you have institutional investors that want to have tax efficient ownership, and so
Mm.
leads to thousands of entities being owned around the world for efficient taxes and liability reasons and certain things. So
Yeah.
when a bill comes in, if you start up,
Mhm.
Tyson's Real Estate, the corporate company is probably not going to pay a lot of bills, maybe some legal stuff like that. Most of the stuff's going to get pushed down and allocated to different properties. So
Gotcha.
the ownership structure is complicated, and then how do you actually code it and do it at that property level is also very complicated
Right.
because in real estate, a lot of it gets passed through the tenant. So if you are a tenant in an office building and someone's cleaning the lobby, well, that actually gets passed back to the tenant in a bill. But maybe that one building, that one tenant negotiated out. So it's not there. And so you get all these what ifs. If it's this, then do it this way. If it's that, do it that
Uh,
way. And so for us, we had done a lot of automation around AP, around payments. There's a lot of good things in the market for that, around approval workflows. But this upfront, hey, it says this, but it really gets broken up 37 different ways. We really relied upon a few people that have worked at the company for like 30 years. We had this woman, Krista, who led the department. She just knew it all. Like I'd come back from a
uh,
conference, give her my receipts, and she'd figure it out.
oh, nice.
So when Krista retired, we could no longer pay a bill, which was like oh, we got a
Oh,
real
wow.
problem here type of thing. That's what it was. It was this shock of like we've invested lots of money into automating AP, but we
Mhm.
had this soft underbelly, this really this tribal knowledge problem that really became apparent when a key person left, and we didn't appreciate how much she knew and trained
Oh,
people
wow.
and solved problems and all that. That was the start of it. The start was, hey, big business can't do what it needs to do because a key person left, and you never want to have a process that's just fully dependent on the knowledge of one person, right? Because you never know
Uh-huh.
what can happen. You can't scale that.
Right.
So that's where the problem became apparent. Then I was not one looking to go make a company. I went to go look for the solution. I didn't want to, build something. I said, oh, this is a real problem. Lots of people must have it. I went to
Yeah.
talk to other CTOs and said, what are you doing? They're like, well, we're throwing bodies at it. We're doing some OCR, which is, scraping text and optical character recognition, where you're scraping information
Mhm.
off of sheets. We're building templates with
Oh, wow.
RPA bots, where you're like building rules.
Huh.
So started to go down those paths and realized that, well, it helps a little bit, this basic stuff like invoice number, total due date, but
Mhm.
that thing where it says, Tyson's real estate, but it really means these 27 buildings, and I split it up this way, except for this one building's different. It can't do that. It doesn't understand that
Right.
because there's something that's not on the paper, right?
Mhm.
And that's where I thought, this is about, again, 5, 6 years ago. I thought
Nice.
this new AI ML thing seems
Mhm.
like it might be a good use case here. No one's really solving this in the market. The reason is because it's a very tribal knowledge, nuanced understanding thing.
Right.
Maybe these new tools can have a different approach there. So we tried it, and we had, the nice thing about this AP problem is you have structured data. Every time you paid a bill, you create a structure. There's a
Oh, wow.
pattern to pick up on. Well, it says this company, but always I know I split up these 12 entities or whatever. And then I
Gotcha.
still have a person in the loop. No one's going to pay a bill without someone looking at it. It's like accounting 101. You need to have segregation of duties. So you have a way to understand if something changes, right? Oh no, we sold that
Mhm.
building, we bought this one. So all that being said, and you can take a lot of shortcuts when you're building for kind of a one company product, and did something to like handle that really specific coding problem up front and pushing it downstream to our existing platform. And we
Nice.
were we were done. It was really great, really really great. And so some of those CTOs I talked to,
Mhm.
they came back and they said, "Show me what you did." And I showed them, and they said, "Oh, I want to buy that." And I was like, you know, big problem, no one solved it. And I was like, and at Colony, we're kind of moving away from the building phase to the maintenance phase, which is a lot less exciting for me. And so
Ah,
I was like, oh, big problem. This new interesting AI thing might be a good solution that no one's really taken this path before.
nice.
And I want my next challenge, and so that's where I decided to leave my like really cozy, high-paying, comfortable job with two small children and jump into the,
Oh,
the world of startups. That's it's questionable life choices, but yeah, no, that was the big decision to jump in. Like let's do this, and also a bit of the hey, I'd love to run a company the way I want to run it. And all of us when we're at
yeah.
companies are like, oh, I would do it different and all that, and beware what you wish for, right? Yeah, so that was really the impetus for me to start PredictAP.
I love that. I appreciate you breaking down your background as well. I think that something that really sticks out to me with what you guys are doing is it seems like you're leveraging AI to enable some of these AP teams that you guys are working with. And so you guys, even though it's maybe a trivial or where people will look at it as like a boring problem in accounts payable, I mean, you guys are making a huge impact whenever you're able to save 80% less time per invoice for these AP teams. So well over half the time that they're spending on invoicing can be cut back by 80% through like the AI and the automation technology that you guys are creating, which I mean that's a pretty huge stat. And I know that you guys have the case studies on your website to prove it as well. But then also there's a 2 to 5x capacity increase for team members at these AP companies where they're able to focus on more higher leverage activities. I know that your team is working with your customers really tightly. Could we, I guess, what does it look like when these AP teams have that much more capacity? 2 to 5 times, they're spending 80% less of time on invoices. Like, what are they able to do? And like, how does that positively impact their business?
Yeah, no, this is great. I love how you really do a research, which is great.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that. So that's what it's all about, is delivering, like really solving a problem and doing value. I think a lot of tech tools are have a fancy dashboard and look pretty in a demo, but at the end of the day, are they really making an impact, or it's just something that gets bought and put on the shelf? So for
Right.
us, being able to really like make a difference in the day-to-day operations is important. And what that looks like depends on what the customer looks like. So,
Sure.
for example, someplace like senior living, right?
Uh-huh.
Assisted living facility, or a multifamily, so apartment complexes.
Hmm.
So if you're running an apartment complex, 400 unit, big, 3-story apartment complex, hundreds of residents. You can imagine that your first day on the job, you're stepping in there and it's like, well, I got to learn my 300 residents, right? I got to know who lives here. Well, I got
Right.
to learn about my 40 people that work on this thing, the maintenance people, the leasing staff, the office staff, all that.
Hmm.
I have to learn about the vendors who do stuff here, right? Okay, the person who does the lawns and the cleaning and all all those different things, the maintenance people, all that. That's a
Uh-huh.
lot of responsibility. And oftentimes this coding, every time a service is done, and this happens, potentially hundreds of times a month.
Right.
Well, you know what happens, so you have to go in the back room and basically do the accounting and do the entry and do all that, so
Oh
that
man.
the work is on site because the knowledge is on site. That's not the highest and best use of those folks' time, right? What do you really
Right.
want the people on site doing? Is you want them with the residents, right? Talking to people, making them feel comfortable at home, talking to those new potential residents, learning about the issues there, right? You want
Right.
them to have that human-facing thing. And so if you can give them powerful tools that take care of the vast majority of that rote stuff, right? The person who's cleaning the parking lots every month, you got it. Like we can
Yeah.
handle that. It's the exceptional thing. Oh, there was that one-off leak in apartment 14. Oh, we have to deal with that new plumber, right?
Uh-huh.
So really, on those places, what it does is it first off takes all that time goes back into higher value add tenant facing things, and then
Nice.
sometimes you can actually make bigger structural changes in your company. It's like, well, you don't actually need to do that at all on site anymore. We can hire two people centrally and take that off the plate that nobody really wants to do on site anyways, right?
Oh wow.
So that leads to a centralization thing. That's great. Maybe you're already centralized and you're doing it manually. And so this is, first off, I really want to make clear
Hmm.
AI is not there to replace people. It's not, it doesn't have the judgment to do that, but it is a tool, a very powerful, effective tool to let people do more things. And it's just like thinking about Microsoft Excel, right? We all use
Hmm.
Excel and spreadsheets and all that. It'd be crazy to try to think, oh, Excel is going to take people's jobs. It's like, well, no, Excel is going to let you actually do a lot more and think a lot more complex ideas and deal with a lot more value add things, right? So on
Right.
the AP side, same thing. This is a powerful tool that lets these folks do more,
Yeah.
work on discounts, work on payment optimization, work on is the vendor changing terms, the vendor, billing me for the right thing that I did. Did I
Yeah.
get, potential fraud invoices, right? I'm looking out for these things now because I have time. And I have a great case example is one of our smaller clients. They had
Hmm.
two AP folks, and one had been the manager and been doing this was their full job. And there's
Nice.
two aspects. One, they still did check runs. They like to see it, and the check runs are always Thursday or Friday. I forget what it was, but it ended up
Uh-huh.
moving forward a whole day, Wednesday. So they said in their 10-year plus history, it's never happened. So we moved a full day forward, which is great. But this person now has so much more time. They got
Hmm.
promoted to be an accountant, right?
Oh
So
wow.
their career is stepping up. And so this is now a subtask of what they're doing, but they're now taking career steps to
Oh
be
wow.
able to do more, and they're on a better path. So I think at the end of the day, yeah, it saves time, and there's a stopwatch time savings of that, and there's always I've yet to see a company where people are just overstaffed and have nothing to do. There's always more value add things. There's always ways you can stop looking at, just we spend so much time just trying to get, the accounting right of what happened last week, as opposed to looking like having time to look forward and say, what are our opportunities and risks? That's really where you want to get your
Right.
people's eyes focused. Where's our opportunities? Not just
Yeah.
saying, hey, did I get this stuff typed in? And that's what we see is that shift from just, rote manual entry to more opportunistic value added things. And that could be talking to people. It could be, doing more higher value tasks.
100%. Yeah, I love that. I love that not only are you impacting, you know, these investors' businesses, but also their team members, allowing them opportunity for growth. And I worked with a multifamily developer on the marketing side of things a while back, and I know that a lot of these guys, the projects don't always go as expected, and they end up bleeding money, and they're always trying to find ways to run a lean operation as much as they possibly can, whenever things kind of get tight. And so if you are able to increase the capacity of one of their team members by 2 to 5x, at that point they don't have to hire on additional accounts payable team members, and they can scale to acquiring larger properties, without the extra like drag and having to hire the extra staff and all of that stuff. So really awesome things that you guys are working on specifically, and maybe that's somebody that I can introduce you to as well, because I noticed that people dealing with these super large commercial real estate properties like luxury hotels and multifamily buildings as well, they are always looking for ways to be more efficient. And it's almost like they want to leverage AI and they want to leverage this technology. They just don't know where it fits best in the operation that they're running. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's, in real estate, the focus is on, they're deal people and they want to do deals. They want to buy buildings and all that. And sometimes actually operating is a secondary thought. But at a certain point, it becomes you can't do more deals because you can't operate what you have, right? And
Right.
so and it's hard to hire people. Like, our economy, it's tough to find good qualified folks. And so this is a really high knowledge position. So absolutely,
Yeah.
it enables them to keep growing without having to add a lot of staff. Your staff can do so much more with who you have.
100%. Yeah. And like you said, it is a very, the accounts payable department is a very important position. I don't want to misquote, who I was working with, but he had mentioned that like invoices have been off in some cases by thousands and thousands of dollars that would have cost him, and they would have came in way over budget. And thankfully, he had to go back in himself manually and correct it. Whereas if he had the power of your like Predict AP's AI, that wouldn't have been the case, and it probably would have gotten caught a lot faster on the front end before it started to cause issues. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I think we looked at, if you look at all of accounting, accounting generally, I think
mhm.
over 60% of everything that's hitting the accounting ledger starts with AP, starts with invoices, starts
Oh
with
wow.
paying bills, and so there's a lot of potential there for that. And that's actually, I talking maybe a little bit about where we're heading is
Mhm.
at the core of what we do and we truly are AI. We actually got a patent on this. We were, to talk about being a first mover. And it's a lot of
Oh, nice,
more recent like kind of LLM wrappers and things like that. But we had some real unique novel IP around the concept of using AI to code invoices.
nice.
But the flaw of this a lot of times with all these models is maybe the past is wrong, right? There's always flaws around hallucinations and things, but
Mhm.
example of this, back to your thing on errors, intentional or not, or just you make compromises because you're busy. So
Right.
let's talk about utility bill. In real estate, you pay lots of utility bills. Utility
Mhm.
companies are tough. If you're a day late, they're going to charge a pretty big late fee. They don't care though, because nobody's going to not pay the bill. You got to have your lights.
Oh wow.
So $5,000 electric bill comes in, $500 late fee happens, right?
Mhm.
Then if it gets coded as like just $5,500 electric,
Mhm.
that's now invisible, right? You don't realize that you paid a late fee, and that's $500. But maybe in aggregate, we saw
Oh
customers
geez.
$30,000 a month, and they don't know. And it's just because someone, instead of saying 5,000 electric, 500 late, and the CFO could say, "Oh, I have 30,000 late fees. Maybe I need to hire someone to pay things quicker to not have this problem."
Mhm.
uh, it's invisible now and says, "Oh, I had a little bit of a variance in electric. It must have been a hot July." And so what we're starting to get into is understanding what is the paper actually saying that maybe is different than where it ended up. So we kind of know
Uh,
where it ended up, kind of know what it should be, and we'll say, you know what, CFO, here's some stuff to look at. That might be interesting. And so we're calling that data insights, and that's where we're trying to kind of figure out, what insights we can help people with.
that's awesome. Yeah, that is awesome. I love that you guys got recognition for your AI technology, and I know that we're coming up on, and we're nearing the last week of July, and you're coming up on the 5-year anniversary for Predict AP as
Time flies.
an organization. Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, back in 2020, you were really an early mover in AI, especially in the commercial real estate space. I feel like being able to successfully implement that type of technology can be fairly tough unless somebody such as yourself with over 16 years of experience can come in and find where it fits the best. And so that was one of the questions I had out of curiosity as well. Like through these past 5 years, how has that experience been for you, just as a CEO, but then also just as a leader of Predict AP to get you guys to where you're at now? Like, could you maybe sum up like how that's been?
It's been, so it's a struggle, let me tell you. The best laid plans, off to go
Mhm.
astray, as they say. It's so my background has been on solving problems, right, and doing it for a big company, but it's actually very different when you're doing it as a software product because you have to think about how to do this at scale, and there's a lot of
Mhm.
shortcuts you can take when you're doing it. And this is a nice thing is that when we decided to launch PredictAP as a company, we
Mhm.
started from a absolute blank piece of paper, right? We didn't use
Oh, wow.
anything because there's a lot of, we saw there's a lot of limitations, a lot of kind of hard coded things when you're doing one company and things like that.
Oh,
And so one of the first people to join was it's actually a buddy of mine from high school. Keep in touch with your high school friends, but Chris
oh, wow.
Antonessi's our head of tech.
Oh, wow.
He was at Apple. He was COVID was around, and he was not enjoying the Apple experience. Those big companies aren't always as glamorous as you think they might be.
Right.
But I came to him with this issue, and he started digging into it. And part of the appeal for him was I was saying, listen, we're gonna have millions of invoices. We're gonna be a big company. You can build the right tech stack that you want. You tell me what you need. I'll give you the time and the money, and like let's do this right. And so
Hmm.
we were able to really, approach this intentionally, knowing we're going to have these kind of public company clients later on.
Uh,
And actually, it's been great because we haven't had this thing. I think a lot of tech companies start from like, let's just get a vaporware illusion of an MVP going, fake it till you make it,
right.
and we've had good growth, and we've not had any downtime. We've not had any issues like that, and our customers are public companies, and so there's always a lot of risk with that. We did our SOC 2 from day one, which everyone, it's funny. I like to watch those Reddit posts, and everyone's like, "Oh, you don't need that. It's a waste of money." I was like, "Well, I think there's some value in that," but we always had this intention of where we're going to go,
Hmm.
and we always also wanted to avoid the easy way of like I wanted to have real AI, which means I don't want to have a person creating rules for a customer because a lot of these firms, at the
Hmm.
end of the day, you find out maybe it's people or maybe it's templates or rules
Oh
or
yeah.
and, and what we wanted was like truly the system needs to figure it out. I will say we spent way more time and way more money
Hmm.
getting to that spot. It was a lot harder than we thought it was going to be, right? And
Yeah.
in theory, it didn't seem so hard. In practice, it did take quite a bit of investment.
Oh
However,
wow.
that let us scale because we actually did accomplish that. And so
Yeah.
as we add, go from 100,000 invoices to a 500,000 to a million to two, three, four, we didn't have to like stop and rebuild it, and it was a very easy flow. So I think the learnings of that were, being intentional with making those choices on how much tech that you want to build, how much, proper infrastructure you want to build,
Yeah.
and then being agile when issues come up. There's always issues along the way and unexpected things, and that makes you pivot and do all that. We were lucky that our kind of the problem we were solving was a good one. We didn't have to pivot off that, which is unusual. It's great. Like we got a great problem, great solution at the start, but the application of it turned out to be really complicated, and that's a learning experience. And then all the other stuff, managing customers, and again, I have a real problem where I can't help but solve problems, but I can't solve I can't turn into a custom solution shop too as a SaaS product. So that's
Wow.
how we figure out what features we're doing in that, and that's another thing that was I think a bigger struggle for me.
Challenging. Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you being candid about all of that as well. But it's awesome to see how you're able to balance like, authentic innovation while also being, just as agile and finding a way to implement all of the things that you and your CTO were coming up with really as well. And so it sounds like you've set a solid foundation for scale, and that's what you guys have been doing the past, couple of years. And really going into the next 12 months, do you guys have any new initiatives that maybe we could cover on this podcast that you would like to let the audience know, or maybe some of your customers know that you might be rolling out within the next year?
Yeah, so I mean, our core product we always improve on. So
Nice.
the complicated real estate invoices, and by complicated, I know everyone that's in real estate knows this. It's the one that comes in and gets split 37 different ways, except for this time it's this way and that time it's that way. That's that's our core product, and we're getting better and better at that. So if you're on Yardi, if you're on Bottom Line, as far as these AP and payment systems in the real estate space, like you should use us. You'll be happy. Our customers are very, very happy. We do a really good job with that. The next thing we're getting into, I touched on a little bit, was this data insights, and that we're going to start to understand what is your data saying, or maybe you're missing some opportunities, right? Maybe you're not, maybe you're unaware of fees going out. Maybe you're unaware your vendors are charging you instead of $200 an hour on that plumber, it's now it's $400 an hour. Maybe you want to know that,
Right.
right? Maybe if you're managing 60 different buildings, and we saw this at one of our senior living where um, human behavior, people don't like to explain why they didn't hit budget or there's things that didn't go well, and so maybe they're
Hmm.
not booking where they should. Like we saw something where a labor cost. So labor is a big component of senior living, and so
Oh wow.
it was booked to marketing. They had a bunch of temp labor, they booked it to marketing, then they didn't
Uh,
spend the marketing, so their budget was fine, right? Oh, our budget said we should spend this, we spent that,
mhm.
but they didn't actually spend the marketing, and they had temp labor in there, and so then maybe 4 or 5 months later, well, now you have a revenue problem. The revenue problem
Oh
is
my
really
God.
caused because you didn't spend the marketing because you were kind of trying to not draw attention to this labor issue, and so
Jeez.
really hard to unravel that, right? And so our ability to say, hey, this was booked there, but maybe it wasn't, or again,
Yeah.
maybe there's changes, maybe there's opportunities. Getting back to that kind of risks and opportunities view, we think there's a lot of potential opportunity of understanding that. Another one we see in multifamily is like how much do you actually spend on a particular unit flipping it? Right? Hey,
Uh,
you have a contract with, LG appliances, and that's what they're supposed to be spending, and it's a $400 stove, and this is what it is. But someone just went out and bought a GE stove for 4 grand, and like, well, that unit flip went way over budget, right?
right.
Was that type of thing. And so understanding that very very granular detail, where it can be very expensive to have people get extremely granular, but
Yeah.
being very granular lets you spot issues and kind of trends across things, and that's where we're heading, is that data insights around understanding what's truly on the paper and letting our customers understand it.
100%. I love that. And one thing that I love about everything that you guys are doing on social media as well is that you're coming out with these really valuable PDFs and these things that people, especially in your industry, commercial real estate, these account payables teams, that are valuable resources that can help them out, and they're free to download as long as they input their information. You guys are able to send it over that way. I know I believe I've seen as well that your CTO has published white papers in regards to your guys' AI technology. So maybe if there's any commercial real estate teams out there that want a better understanding of maybe they hear that all AI companies are just an LLM wrapper. Well, then they can go to your guys' white paper, and really, if they want to be technical, they can figure out exactly how you guys are differentiating and building like an authentic solution. So
Yeah.
outside of the website, what would you say is the best social media platform for really the audience to go? Anybody who watches this to connect with you guys.
Yeah, I love LinkedIn. I find it really helpful to see what colleagues and folks in the industry are up to. I'm on I'm active on groups there as
Nice.
far as folks talking about problems. Again, I can't help but kind of chime in on things, and back to your point on content. Like, I think I'm always trying to tell my team, like, let's help people solve problems, and it may not be related directly to us or not, but I think if we were helping enough people solve enough problems, good things come back to you. And so I'm always happy to help anyone out, and I'm active there. Yeah, I think that's a good thing. We're actually trying to do more around bringing interesting people who solve different issues and talk about how they did it, right? I think
Oh,
that's always a good thing. Also, conferences. I'm at quite a few, OpTech,
nice.
Blueprint, Cretech, you name it, I'm probably there.
Nice.
And a lot of those we have booths, and I'm again happy to talk about more than just PredictAP. So if you've got a particular real estate problem in the kind of that Yardy world, that's my background in life. So I'm happy to chat with you there. So it's always great to meet people in person. I think that's the best place. But if not,
Yeah.
LinkedIn's really good, or of course predictap.com, and we have our blog on there. So we try to have a good amount of content that people can find useful.
Absolutely. I mean, you guys are crushing it. And I'll be sure to include links in the description to your social media, the company's social media, the website, and all of that good stuff. I highly recommend that you guys do go check out all the awesome stuff that Predict AP is working on. But, really other than that, David, I just wanted to tell you thank you so much again for your time and really for your insights today as well.
Well, thank you so much, Tyson. I really appreciate being on here with you.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that you want to leave the audience with, or do you think that we pretty much covered it up to this point?
Yeah, no, I think for the audience, get in touch and keep being interested in learning things. I think that's where I think that's
Yeah.
for me the one big learning of this is you never know where that like thing you learned one time comes out to be helpful later on. And so keep being inquisitive, I think is the key to making good products and good solutions down the road.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. But there you have it, guys. We will catch you in the next video.
Thank you.